When I was a child, I felt alone. I was a rebel. I questioned almost everything that I was told to do, whether it be going to church, going to after-school sports, or even going to a four-year college. I'm grateful for my programming or conditioning because it allowed me to get a leg up on my peers that just obeyed without question. Formal education, like college, has its place, but it has consistently been losing people's trust in its ability to secure their future. And I would argue that people never had absolute trust in its ability to secure their future, but the thought of forging your own path is just that. It's uncertain. You have to create your own way rather than have a way that was created placed in front of you so that your mind can conform to that and have that clarity in order to just follow a set path rather than exploring the unknown aspects of life that lead to discoveries, insights, and anything else good that you can create for yourself. People inherently know that life enjoyment is a choice, but nobody wants to face that reality, so they outsource their quality of life to the over-exaggerated promises of schools and jobs. It's all too common for people to spend 4 to 12 years, spend tens of thousands of dollars just to get placed into a low-level, entry-level job that pays barely anything, not enough to survive, barely enough to be able to afford a decently priced apartment, and then they have to still spend another 5 to 10 years self-educating in alignment with the job that they got in order to climb that ladder. So to me, it seems like there is a major flaw in this system. You have to learn for 4 to 12 years, and then you have to continue learning for 5 to 10 years while barely using anything in the degree that you got. Now, this is like an over-exaggerated case, right? This isn't the case with every single degree, with every single situation. I'm well aware of that. I'm just painting a picture of this is what happens a majority of the time. So the education system does have its benefits. I'm not like absolutely opposed to college. Everything is context and situation dependent. But for those that want fulfilling work and an open, free schedule that you have control over, a glorified piece of paper called a degree isn't going to do that for you. It will be a stepping stone at best and a financial chain at worst. So in my case, after 5 years and $20,000 down the drain and another 2 years to go if I actually wanted to complete my degree, I was fed up. And of course, jobs can be a necessary stepping stone, but my conceptual survival was at stake. I had adopted the identity of a person that would never get a job. That was a goal of mine, and I was trying to survive that goal. That's what we as humans do. We survive concepts. And so when I did end up getting a job, it was like I died, right? It was a metaphorical death of my identity at the time. And so that just launched me into this weird phase of life where I was just working constantly to try and get back to the identity that I was trying to hold at that time. So I was working even harder to get out of that job. And so rewind a bit, in my final year of college, I came across this class on computer programming, just like basic web development. I took that class, and it was the first one that I was genuinely interested in the 4 years that I had been going to school. And so after school, I spent 3 to 4 hours a day studying web development, so HTML, CSS, JavaScript, on my own with not only free education platforms online, but paid Udemy courses, which were like $10 each for crazy amounts of information. And so this is when the reality of formal education slapped me in the face, because within 2 weeks, I had learned the entire college course worth of curriculum on my own through self-education on the internet. And so I stopped going to class, but I still aced all of the tests. Knowledge not found in schools is the source of money not found in employment. We are in the middle of a massive shift. And so when people say this, you're like, well, where's the shift? It's shifts are slow, right? You don't think, like, we don't just go through an entire industrial revolution in 5 seconds. But the shift that we're going through isn't specific to money. So the new rich that we're going to talk about here isn't about making billions of dollars, getting a bunch of fancy cars, or buying a new mansion. And I'm not saying these things are bad. These can be very useful goals for exposing yourself to more life experiences. I would argue that pursuing a superficial pursuit of buying a car is better than sitting around and doing nothing. And when you do pursue those things and you get them, you're going to learn a lesson very, very quickly that you need a philosophical pursuit of mastery behind the possessions that you acquire in your life, whether they be skills or material things like a car or a house, right? If you do not appreciate it for what it is, if you do not take it from the peripersonal neurotransmitters like dopamine, like you wanting something, you wanting to acquire something and bring it into your life, once that's over and the dopamine fades, are you able to shift to the here and now neurotransmitters, aka the present moment, and be able to appreciate what you have by developing a relationship with it, in a sense? So if you buy that car, are you going to study mechanics? Are you going to work on that car on your own? Are you going to be able to maintain the sense of awe that you have for the craftsmanship that went into it? Are you going to have to study the craftsmanship of a car in order to appreciate it more? Or is it just going to be a hunk of metal in your garage because you know how you no longer have the dopamine associated with the pursuit of that goal? So back to it. The New Rich is about leveraging technology for fulfilling work, open schedules, and individual choice, things that are heavily lacking in today's world. So let's break down each for the sake of awareness. This part of the video isn't going to be hyper actionable, and that's for good reason. It's because you have to have awareness of a possibility in order to actually act on something, right? If I just give you actionable steps for something and you don't have that reason or that why that applies to your life behind it, you don't have an intrinsic motivation to actually go out and do the actionable steps that I give you, then it's not going to mean anything. You have to have awareness of what's going on in the world, the opportunities available, and then once that's backed with actionable steps to bring clarity, even then the actionable steps are just a prescription, right? It's just a temporary fix until you figure out how to do it on your own. So as we go over these, just hold them in your mind as you go about life, so you can connect the dots, right? So you can actually go online and see what I'm talking about and be like, oh, okay, I'm going to do this. So the first aspect of the New Rich is technology. The internet has democratized wealth generation for the self-educated and self-reliant. The internet allows you to learn the skills that the schools won't teach, and those skills are often the ones that lead to becoming irreplaceable, because if schools can mass educate a huge amount of people, then those people are replaceable, because then the next generation of people going through that same curriculum, you're competing for the same thing rather than learning in a non-linear way via curiosity and through the internet in alignment with your personal goals and not the goals that are assigned to you by the school system. Then you forge your own path that way, and that's how you become irreplaceable, by learning the skills in alignment with that hierarchy of goals that you are pursuing. So you need to invest time and money into education that won't lead to a static salary. This should be obvious. So you invest time to get results, and if you have money, you invest money to get results, and then you use results as leverage to make more money and free up time. So the next thing is fulfilling work. Anyone can be happy, even the sheep, but fulfillment specifically is a different story. You need a purpose or else you will be assigned one. The difference between a sheep and a human being is that one is assigned a purpose and the other creates their purpose. Because life is not kind to those that don't know what they want out of it. And if you don't know what you want out of life, it's not going to come in an instant. You have to constantly think about it. It has to be at the top of your mind almost every second of every day, because as you're going about life and you're observing and discerning, this is an important thing, is if I'm in a situation and I observe, I'm at the grocery store, I see someone in a wheelchair that is very overweight and their shopping cart is filled with junk, I can discern, not judge, that I do not want to end up like that, so I'm not going to do those same actions. I'm not going to fill my grocery cart with those things. That's how you learn, and that's how you eventually figure out, okay, I don't want to be that guy, I want to be that guy. Comparison can be a very good thing if perceived correctly. And it's the same thing with every single area of life. It's not only who you want to become, but where you want to live, what you want to look like, what skills you want to have, how much money you want to make, how much free time you want on your hand, what activities do you want to fill your day with. All of this should be consistently at the top of your head so that you have something to work towards. So the third thing after fulfilling work is empty schedules. So with 1 to 2 years of fulfillment work focused effort by leveraging the internet, you should be able to have much more, if not complete control over your time, income, location, and lifestyle, and specifically what you're actually doing on a day-to-day basis, because you've refined your daily process and workflow to the point of knowing, okay, I don't want this in my day, I want this in my day. I can change my products or services or just what I'm doing in order to reflect that. I can outsource, I can delegate, I can just eliminate altogether, because sometimes things just don't belong in your day or in your workflow. But that's just the thing. You won't have a boss that is maintaining order in your daily schedule. You have to do that yourself. And 8-hour workdays, endless screen time, and little movement are antagonists to human psychology and physiology. If you are constantly overworking yourself, you are destroying your chances at becoming more self-aware, harnessing your creative potential, and actually creating a vision for the future. This is a psychological phenomenon called the default mode network. It's a network in your brain. It turns on when you switch from outward focused cognition, like work, to inward focused cognition that happens when you are engaging in restful activities. This is why I'm so big on working only 4 to 6 hours a day, preferably on the lower end, and then stopping work and focusing on other areas of your life and incorporating more rest into your days. And so you may not notice the ramifications of this overworked way of living because it's become normal to you and you can't see anything beyond it. You can't see yourself being more creative because you think you're at the peak of your creativity right now, when that is nowhere near the case. And anything you say about this right now, it doesn't matter, because you aren't experiencing it right now. You have to open your mind to the possibility of a better future in order to start to work towards that future and make new discoveries of what you are actually capable of. So control over your lifestyle and your schedule allows you to realign with your nature, or that is to leverage your psychology and fuel to feel superhuman. So the last thing is individual choice. Without autonomy and without pursuing your own path or building your own thing, your choices are automatic for the sake of survival. You are literally a robot, and they stem from following the secure path that has been laid out for you. And so you're living in this constant state of survival. Your attention is constantly narrowed on stressful tasks and everything else that is kind of useless in your day but is made to seem important. And so with this one, it's the same deal, where you're not leveraging the default mode network in your brain, and 2, you feel like you don't have time, and you genuinely may not have enough time for self-development, spirituality, creativity, or just doing the fulfilling work that you want to do for the rest of your life. You just can't make those things happen if your choices are chained to a paycheck. It's not instant, as all good things aren't, but creating an independent income source is necessary for those that want full control over their life. Now we have to become a digital renaissance man or woman to thrive in this new economy of the new rich. I'm just throwing out concepts here and there because who knows what it's actually going to be. There is something new emerging, and we have to conceptualize it so that people can work towards that thing. So here's a graphic of the things that we're going to go over. You will make some connections from the $1 million skill stack video that we talked about in the past. But in short, what we're doing here is we are acquiring modern skills, acquiring evergreen skills, acquiring life experience, and acquiring personal interests. And then we are putting all of those towards a profitable problem in order to create an irreplaceable solution so that you can make an independent income. And now this is like overly optimal case, right? This is once you have everything right, once you're good to go, once you're pretty much set for life, these are all of the skills that you're going to have in order to look from a big picture down at a profitable problem in the market. And preferably you're going to have built some form of a name for yourself so that you have traffic to send to the product or service that you create around that profitable problem. That's all that business is. This is like the overcomplicated end goal that we're pursuing, but I want to make you aware of it, because big picture understanding of all of this is so much more important than the technical details. I could go over and I could give you step by step, here's how you write a Twitter thread, here's how you write a tweet, oh, here's how you land your first client. But if you don't understand what you should be learning, what you should be pushing towards, and being able to make connections on the way, it's just going to be a much more difficult time. So the state of work has seen big changes since the pandemic. Specialists are out, but so are generalists. And now they aren't out entirely, of course. You're going to be a specialist at times, especially at the beginning, possibly. You're going to be a generalist at others. You're going to dance between the two. And this is just what the normal world runs on right now, before we slowly transition, until the majority of people transition over into this new rich or new economy or creator economy. So that's what the normal world runs on, but we aren't here to be normal. You aren't watching this video because you want to be normal. So we live in a time of specialized generalism, and that is to say, the highest paid individuals are the ones that use the creative ability of their mind to focus on a specific, profitable problem to deliver above average results. The more skills that you acquire and the more personal interests that you research, the more awareness you have at the intersection of those domains. So you can pull from experience to laser in on a problem related to any of those skills, interests, or the intersections or combinations of both, right? Like if I were to study fitness and study business, and then I want to solve a problem in the middle where I create a fitness system for busy people or busy businessmen, then that's a bit more specific and a bit more profitable than just like, hey, here's a fitness program. And since I have an awareness of both of those domains, I'm able to craft such a more compelling marketing campaign, especially if I have experience in those things. If I've upped my fitness and I've upped my business, then I know exactly how to combine those two into something that is going to work. Because the typical advice is to target a profitable niche, which is good. And so if you target something like fitness and then you go into it trying to offer a business service, but you don't have experience in either, you haven't improved your fitness yourself, and you haven't self-experimented with a bunch of different diets and a bunch of different training philosophies, you're going in blind. So all of this stuff, whether it be self-educating or acquiring all of these skills, right, rapidly, being able to acquire skills rapidly and practice them immediately with internet tools, has only become a possibility over the last decade thanks to the development of the internet. History repeats itself, and we are cycling back through a time where creatives, visionaries, and strategists have the resources available to them to thrive, like they would in the Renaissance times. So we've already discussed the next two things that we're going to go over in the $1 million skill stack video, but it's worth reiterating these because people need to be reminded more than they need something new. So to keep this brief, make it your purpose to obsess over marketing, sales, writing, and speaking. Preferably writing, because then you can accurately practice marketing and sales via your writing. And that's what makes writing good anyways, is human psychology. Marketing and sales are just conceptual ways of structuring human psychology into a way that leads to a better exchange of goods. So all of those skills, marketing, sales, writing, and speaking, evergreen skills, remember those. They will never go out of fashion. They will never get replaced. No matter what ChatGPT makes you think, it's just not going to happen if you are a true writer, speaker, marketer, or salesman. So they all intersect, but they are necessary for any form of independent income generation. You absolutely need these skills. There is no way around them. This is why artists, coders, and anyone else who does not start with learning these skills fail, because they think they can just put their fancy art in front of people and expect it to do good, right? And some do succeed, but that's only because they were able to intuit the principles of marketing, sales, and writing. They may not be aware of it because it's unconscious competence at that point, but they understand how to speak to a human being in order to receive something from the value that they're giving them. So to become a digital renaissance man, you will be learning a variety of skills and interests that pique your curiosity, right? You just are endlessly learning. If you don't have a educational habit already, if you aren't learning something on a daily or weekly basis, whether it be new skills, new opportunities, new interests, you aren't watching YouTube videos on like fitness or personal development or whatever it may be, and even then, that alone primes your mind to receive opportunities in those domains. But if you aren't doing those things and you aren't practicing skills, if you don't set aside time for both theory and practice every single day, you're not going to win in this economy. Why are you watching this video? If you want to become a digital renaissance man, then it's very apparent that you're going to have to acquire many skills and interests in order to differentiate yourself from everyone else. And if you aren't doing that, it's going to take years to do that. So you might as well start now, especially if you're going to be doing it for the rest of your life. Why aren't you doing it now if you're going to be doing it for the rest of your life? Regardless of whether you're paid or not. That's the difference in consistency. You do what you want to do in your future now, and you slowly increase the time you're allowed to spend on doing those things and the money that you are acquiring doing those things. Those are what increase with consistency. And so the evergreen skills, marketing, sales, writing, and speaking, are what allow you to package up those skills and interests that you have been learning on your own into something that is profitable. And so a few YouTube videos will suffice for learning the principles and fundamentals of these things, right? Marketing, sales, writing, speaking comes last and is based off of writing, but you get the point. Don't ask me for recommendations. That's against the point. That's not hunting. You have to lean into your psyche's nature of wanting to hunt for ideas and knowledge and information in order to reap that good dopamine and make it a sustainable habit. Don't outsource your curiosity to me. Now, of course, if you want to learn these things in a structured manner, you can either join Modern Mastery for $5, which is a community and strategy library, or you can check out 2-Hour Writer, which is marketing and sales applied to writing in a practical format online, so you can build a name for yourself and potentially sell a product or service down the road by being a digital renaissance man. And of course, digital economics is a good option as well, but that has 2-Hour Writer in it. I would recommend starting with 2-Hour Writer. And so courses aren't necessary if you make the time to study and practice, but they are obviously helpful for those that understand what their goals are, know that the course aligns with their goals, and the course is streamlined enough but still emphasizes free and critical thinking in order to reach that goal. So after evergreen skills is personal interests. What seems to be the only difference between the successful and mediocre in this age is choice of consumption. In one camp, we have the distracted. They scroll without intention, no goals or focused effort. And then in the other camp, we have the obsessed. And the obsessed, they research their interests in alignment with their future goals. And we're going to talk about self-experimentation and launching into a season of obsession in the next video. And so the purpose behind this and learning and researching constantly interests in alignment with your goals is that if you want to become, let's say, a health expert, every health expert online, anyone worth following anyways, has a constant finger on the pulse of the health market. They're staying up to date on studies. They're staying up to date on what people are talking about. They're immersed in that market. The same with business, the same with anything. If you want to branch into a domain or an industry, then you need to be up to date and consistently studying and learning from the people in that industry. And this is not limited to social media. This is books, podcasts, everything. Now, we talked about those before, and as I said, we talked about these in a previous $1 million skill stack video, but I want to walk everyone through a thought experiment on creative problem solving and how important this can get and how it truly makes you irreplaceable. And now, a lot of you like this little saying in one of the last videos, but 1% of 50 years is 6 months, and most people can't last 2 weeks. So all of this takes time, a lot of time, and you have to broaden your time horizon, and you have to actually think about things, right? If we go back to the point that I illustrated earlier about school taking 4 to 12 years to actually complete, and another 5 to 10 years of self-education to actually increase your salary from that job and climb up the ladder, if you can just stick out forging your own path for 2 to 4 years, you're way ahead of the curve. 2, you're able to monetize along the way. You're not just like putting things off for 4 to 12 years just to get through college while giving them money. Like, weigh the pros and cons and call yourself out on your own bullshit. So as you are pushing the boundary of the known, here's the graphic about fulfillment. You have to push the boundary of the known. You have to acquire skills in order to match a challenge. Therefore, you have to be consistently learning and practicing on challenges that present themselves in pursuit of your goals, and finding fulfillment in those challenging problems because they are intrinsically aligned with you. And as you're doing that, you're shining the light of awareness on what used to be the unknown. And so by doing this, you increase the volume of your domain of mastery, or the things that the field that you are able to solve creative problems in. Or if we consider the unknown the market and the known your niche, then your niche slowly expands, and the skills that you acquire along the way allows you to target a problem within the niche. So here's the thought experiment. There are 4 small circles that form the outline of a square, right? So in each corner there's a circle. This first set of circles represents the eternal markets: health, wealth, relationships, and happiness. These are where all burning and profitable problems exist. This is what you should start with if you are just starting a business. You shouldn't think about starting a new software for creativity or creating this art. Like, you can create art, yes, but you have to position it into one of these eternal markets, because you don't have leverage yet to create whatever you want. And what I mean by that is you need to create art that hits and implies the problems or pains within the health, wealth, relationships market, and you can narrow those down even further if you'd like to. And now, as you develop yourself within these domains, just to reiterate who I talk to in my videos, it's for self-improvers, people that improve their mind, body, spirit, business, right? So as you're improving yourself in these eternal markets, health, wealth, relationships, happiness, you are solving your own problems in these areas. And as you do that, the circles that we drew earlier, they are expanding until they get to the point of overlap, and then you start making connections within those things, and that's where you can start to solve problems. All right, so let's set those aside for a second, those circles, and let's create a new set. But this time, the circles at the corner of the square are the evergreen skills. So marketing, sales, writing, speaking. And as you develop and practice those skills, the same thing happens. The circles expand until you understand that they all work together. And now you apply the same thing to the modern skills that we mentioned earlier that you would learn to aid in this, right? Marketing, sales, writing, and speaking, those are evergreen. They've been around forever because humans have been around forever. Well, kind of. But modern skills are things that people keep telling you to learn first, which doesn't make sense. So they're telling you to learn like email marketing, Facebook ads, Google ads, web design, SEO, the things that have recently emerged and that are useful modalities for applying marketing, sales, writing, and speaking and the eternal markets, then that makes sense. So you have to learn these as well. And you don't have to learn 4, but you can learn 1 or 2 and you get the same idea. All those circles expand and eventually cross over. So now we have 3 sets of overlapping circles. And the last piece of the puzzle is personal interests. So let's take me, for example. I like philosophy, epistemology, spirituality, and psychology, right? So those are my 4 that I would put in those circles. Same thing. As I learn more about those, I research them over time. We're talking like 1, 2, 3 years here, right? You don't need all of these at once. You don't need to study all of these at once. I'm just painting an end goal for you that you can work towards over the years. So as those circles expand and overlap, the same thing happens. But now we have 4 sets of those overlapping circles that we can take and piece together. With 4, it'll fit into like a pyramid, right? It'll go boom, 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 and then a triangle on the bottom. And it doesn't really work that way, but imagine they all mesh together into some form of a cube or some form of a pyramid. And then once you place a problem in the middle of that pyramid or cube, then you have all of this skill and experience that you can kind of like navigate around the surface of, and then pull from your experience to solve that problem in a very unique way. This is difficult to explain because very few people actually reach this point. And this is what it takes to even build a huge company. But hopefully I'm trying to get people ahead of the curve here, where technology is allowing the one-person business to emerge and actually make a substantial contribution to mankind, right? Before, you need a massive company with a bunch of different departments that are experts in all of the things we just talked about that would form the square, right? Or the cube. And that cube would normally be a company, and all of the teams work on solving a profitable problem by creating a product or service. But the human mind of one individual can do this now, and they will only be able to do it more in the future, especially when courses and other things are like zip files of knowledge now. It's such condensed and specific information to the point of getting results much, much quicker, at least much faster than we used to be able to. And so I want to reiterate the principle of nothing happens and then everything happens, right? The purpose of me illustrating those circles expanding until they overlap is that you're not going to understand like how those things connect until you develop yourself within those areas enough. And then once you do, and once they overlap, it's like putting that final piece into the puzzle, and then a messy image turns into a clear image in your head, technically. And so this is the path of the digital renaissance man. They replace distraction with education, and while sustaining that habit, make focused effort toward helping others as you develop those skills. You can do this for free, for paid, in public, or in private. Freelancing, coaching, content creation, or whatever method you want to use to get your abilities in front of the world. Now, I would recommend watching the One Person Business, How to Productize Yourself, to understand like how to package these things up more. I have an entire playlist on it on my profile. But also remember that skills must be tested with challenge. If you're bored along this path, it's because you're not challenged. If you're anxious, it's because you're aiming for a challenge too high and your skill hasn't matched that yet. Remember that you have to go through phases: beginner, intermediate, advanced. So we talked about comparison possibly being a good thing previously, but that's only if you understand that there is a gap between you and the other person. If you look at me or look at someone you admire and think, oh, wow, look at him, he's an overnight success, because I simply can't comprehend that there's a gap between me and him. But that's just the thing, is be careful when comparing yourself, and be sure to make a positive assumption. Assumption can also be very bad, but making a positive assumption of, okay, this guy did this, this, and this to get there, so I'm going to follow that path because our goals align, right? So in that case, it's not comparison, but connection. And so that's the thing. Skill and challenge have to match. If you do not make an actual effort to create with your skills or practice in the real world with your skills, then you are not acquiring skills. You're acquiring knowledge, and both are useful, but knowledge without skill is absolutely worthless, because you have to be able to take what's in your mind and then use your hands to actually build something tangible. That's what humans do. All right, that's it. Learn, act, repeat, and don't let your mind get trapped in a thought loop of things that don't matter. That's all for this video. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, check links in the description for free courses, paid courses, all about everything we just talked about. So improving yourself, improving others, monetizing along the way. That's it. See you in the next one. Peace.